Hi, so it's Pete Posner here. We're going to look at use of used to and would today to talk about the past. First, used to. Okay, so used to is used for repeated actions in the past. The action does not happen now. For example, Ryan used to wear sports clothes, but now he wears suits and ties. Okay, so this means that in the past he did this on repeated occasions, but he no longer does this. Okay. And well, the form, the subject, then used to, and then the verb. Okay, for example, I used to speak a little English. Notice that the to sounds with the weak form. Okay, so it's used to. Okay, I used to speak a little English. Okay, you used to go to college. He used to play computer games. She used to work in a hospital. It used to rain a lot in winter. We used to take vacations at the beach. They used to listen to hip hop. Okay, so a quick practice. Used to or the present simple. Can you complete the sentences using the verb in brackets and used to or the present simple? Okay, pause the video, take 1 minute, and then we'll check together. Okay, here we go. So number one, when I was young, I used to fight with my sister. Number two, Rodrigo used to listen to rock music, but now he listens to classical music. One little thing about pronunciation, notice that the d doesn't sound. That's because it's followed by the t sound. Okay, so we lose this d sound. So it's used to. Rodrigo used to listen to rock music. Okay, now the negative form. I didn't used to live here, but I do now. But now I do. Okay, so notice here the form. You just use the auxiliary didn't, and then we've got the infinitive use, right? So we lose the D, but notice because the D sound wasn't pronounced in the affirmative, we don't have it, the letter D here. Okay, so actually the pronunciation is the same here. It's used to, the same pronunciation as in the affirmative. I didn't used to live here, but now I do. And the form, so we have the subject, didn't used to, and then the verb. Okay, so I didn't used to speak so loudly. You didn't used to go running. You didn't used to play computer games. In the question form, it's the same except here we're going to use did, auxiliary did for the question, and then the subject. Okay, so we invert the subject and the auxiliary. Okay, so the auxiliary first, did, and then the subject. Okay, did she used to work in that office? Did it used to snow here? Did we used to stay at that hotel? Okay, now let's do a couple of examples for practice. Okay, first make negative sentences. Change the sentences from positive to negative. For example, he used to work at a supermarket, so negative. He didn't used to work at a supermarket. Remember, we lose the D from the affirmative, right? And we add the auxiliary didn't. Okay, so just do 28 and 29 for practice, and we'll check them in 1 minute. Okay, 28. She used to drive us to school every day. Negative. She didn't used to drive us to school every day. 29. Max used to travel to France twice a year. Negative. Max didn't used to travel to France twice a year. Okay, now make questions. For example, we used to go dancing at the club. Okay, so then to make the question, just use the auxiliary, then the subject, and again remember to take off the D in the affirmative for the question. So it's, did we used to go dancing at the club? Okay, do the same for 33 and 34, and we'll check together in a minute. Okay, so 33, that factory used to make a lot of women's clothing. Okay, so auxiliary, did, then subject, that factory, and then take off the D. Did that factory used to make a lot of women's clothing? Mr. Watson used to give us homework on Monday. Did Mr. Watson used to give us homework on Monday? Okay, so now let's talk about using used to and also would. Okay, so first, remember that used to we can use for both states and actions. Okay, so here we've got states. I used to be a football player, right? I used to be friendly. Okay, not anymore. Yeah, and also actions, right? I used to play football. I used to study law. Okay, so you can see these verbs are different, right? So these verbs, play and study, are actions. Be and, well, we've got be in both on both occasions here are states. We'll look at some more examples of states. But used to we can use for both states and actions. Okay, would we can use in a similar way to used to, right? To talk about repeated actions in the past. Okay, so for repeated actions or habits in the past, we can use used to or would, right? After work, I used to run around the park, or after work, I would run around the park. Okay, the form of for would, it's just would, right? And then the infinitive without to, yeah. Okay, but for states, we can only use used to, right? So, for example, I used to be happy. Now I'm a sad person. uh, but I can't say I would be happy, right? That doesn't work. I used to be happy, okay, because this is a state, okay? Another state is I used to live in London, right? It's not an action, it's a state. So I have to use used to. I can't say I would live in London. Okay, have another look at the difference between states and actions. Action, right? I would or I used to hide in the cupboard. So hiding is an action, right? When I had to go to the doctor. Okay, again, states. So we've seen these two verbs, right? Live and be. And you can see in the diagram, it's different, right? With used to, it's a habit, right? It's repeated. But a state is just something that was continuously the case in the past, right? So there we have to use used to. I used to live in London when I was young. I used to be naughty, right? Okay, let's practice a little bit. So use would if possible. So remember, only if it's an action. Change the sentences from used to would. Some sentences cannot be changed. So those are the sentences that are referring to states. We have to use used to, so we can't change it to would. Okay. All right. So take 2 minutes. See if you can change these sentences to would. Right. Okay. So I'll give you a clue. Two of them, it's possible to use would. Two of them are actions, and one of them is a state, so you can't change it. Okay. Take 2 minutes, and then we'll check together. Okay, let's check. So the first one, I used to pick flowers on the way home from school. Okay, this is an action, right? I would pick flowers on the way home from school. That's also possible, right? If you're not sure of the difference between a state and an action here, ask yourself if the verb could mean a habit, All right, so this is a habit, right? I would pick flowers. Okay. Okay, so for this one, 29, he used to be married now, but now he's divorced. Okay, this isn't a habit, right? Okay, this is a state. Yeah. So we can't use would. We have to leave it as used to be married. Okay. This is a habit, right? I used to forget to do my homework when I was young. That's a habit. So we can also say I would forget to do my homework when I was young.